Welcome back to another podcast of Dreaming Night Build. I am your host, Genesis Haycrick, and I'm so excited for today's conversation because it's one that's really going to speak to the heart of so many women who are trying to find balance, build better habits, and live more authentically. Today, I am joined by the incredible guest, Kayle, a former athlete and fitness model who has transformed her own life in powerful ways after walking through unimaginable loss, a divorce, and the struggles of toxic relationships. Kayle has become a strong voice for mental health, self awareness, and authenticity. She now empowers women to reclaim their lives and rewrite their own stories. So I cannot wait for you to hear from her.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. This is so wonderful. Kayle, by the way, is my first guest.
Definitely better than talking to yourself.
For sure. So you've been through so much in your life. You navigated divorce, difficult relationships, your mother has passed, just so many things. So I would love to start off by having you talk about that and just in relation to your story and how things have potentially shifted for you. Can you talk about that a little bit for our audience today?
Gosh, it is crazy to look back now at 35. A woman probably shouldn't be saying my age, but I'm 35. And yeah, I have gone through a lot of hard, difficult times, although there's been a lot of obviously joyful moments in between. But what I can say is that, I think we were going to discuss like kind of when that moment shifted for me where I knew I needed to like take back control of my own life because there definitely was a period where I was just lost and I wasn't in control and I wasn't that strong, confident version of myself, which I think is so common for women to come across that season of life where they just like, who am I? And I really had that moment and it was at a rock bottom moment and I wouldn't suggest getting to a rock bottom in order to ask yourself that question. So for me, I love to advocate for women to really reflect starting now and start not getting to that place where you have nothing else to do but ask like why and who am I? And so I definitely remember very vividly that moment. It was in 2020, the beginning of 2020, right before the world started shutting down and my ex and I had gotten into a pretty heated argument because of things that I had found out and I just felt like so betrayed and everything just came crashing down at me at once. Our argument ended up turning physical. It got really, really bad. The police got involved. And so the hours after that incident, I was just sitting there by myself, like emotionally, just almost a zombie. Like I was just so disassociated from reality. And that was the moment that I realized that like someone else was actually mastering my emotions. Like they were the master of my emotions because everything that person did, didn't do, said, acted, like that was how I dictated how I was going to act or behave or my attitude. And I was just again not that like strong, independent, confident version of myself. And so whenever like something happened to me, which it didn't really happen to me, but I reacted so horribly and I just was like everything I have is like invested into this other person and like what do I have? Who am I without him? And so that would just really began my journey of rediscovering myself and my self-discovery journey and kind of getting back to my authentic self. And actually I wouldn't even say back because as we'll talk about, like I didn't actually know who I was for a very long time. And again, this was 2020. I was just turned 30 years old. I spent so much of my life just disassociated from my true self. And fortunately for me, the world did start to shut down and I had no other option but to just like go inside of myself, literally and inside, and work on myself. And so I will forever say COVID, like, as horrible as it was, it definitely put me on a trajectory of going inside and rediscovering myself. And that's like the moment everything changed for me. And I always say, you can't change your life overnight, but you kind of simultaneously can change your life overnight if you decide from that moment on that you're gonna work on yourself and change.
Yes, making that powerful decision that I'm not gonna wait around any longer for permission or something else to happen, that I actually can be an advocate for that.
Yeah.
I get to choose, and I just love all of that so much, and I feel that there's so many women that can directly relate to that from past relationships or current relationships, and they're scared to break free, and so it's encouraging that you have been able to walk away from that and fast forward where you are today, so incredible, all the things that you're doing, and which of course we're going to get into here shortly. I also want to talk about your habits and just, you come from a very competitive fitness background and how cool that you've been able to be in the shows. That's something that I've always wanted to do. The thing that I struggle with the most is the diet and just like really cutting
Yeah.
back and so I'm
Well, you
always
have
just
to not like flavor in your food if we're gonna do one of those. So,
just very bland,
yes.
simple.
You don't need flavor in your food, you're good.
Well, maybe you can coach me on that someday. It's definitely on my bucket list at some point. So how did your habits change going from the strict rigidity of that to now? Because I would imagine that, now being a mom and your lifestyle, I'm sure, is a little bit different now. Although I know you did a competition
Yeah.
after you had your
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
So maybe things haven't changed that
Yeah.
much. How would you
I would
describe that?
definitely say I did a fitness competition almost exactly 10 years apart, but there was much different purpose behind them. The first one I did, and I will say about my habits in the past being so disciplined and regimented, like you said, was if you're like me and you're a person who has always equated love and worth to performance, you will find yourself really getting into something where the results are very outcome driven or your habits are very outcome driven or you get that external results or validation. And so for so long that was all it was about was like what can the goals I'm chasing, how do I look? If I looked a certain way, that means people would treat me different. They would love me. So growing up even just everything was based around performance or performing and I that's when I realized that later on. And so for a decade, it was very much like, okay, I'm going to do this because I have to look a certain way, I have to perform, I have to achieve, and then that will give me the love that I'm seeking. Second to that, I do think people equate habits to something they have to add to their schedule. And that's why I think it's so overwhelming for people to talk about habits or want to add a new habit because they're like, oh, I have to like, I'm already a very busy individual. I don't have enough time. And when I think of adding habits, it just seems overwhelming. So when you are doing habits more so around like your thinking or your attitude or stuff, there's no external results. Like people usually can't see that. I mean, maybe you might be more happy and more joyful, less stressed, and people can that will show and people can see that. But yeah, it became less about how I was looking or what I was achieving and more so about what are the habits that I can do to help my mental well-being, and that was the therapy, the journaling, the meditating, and again, like the rewiring my brain with my thinking, and that all didn't take any more time, if not less than the habits I did have in the past. So,
I love that
yeah.
so much. And really at the end of the day is that's where the true grows, the true self-awareness happens when we take the time to be able to really dig in to the things that we need the most. When we core into those essentials, I think that we can create the habits that actually develop peace and contentment.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's what you exude now because you've been practicing for so long.
Yeah.
And, in the past, I can really relate to that from a standpoint of just performance based and like being a perfectionist and trying to achieve and win and be the best at everything. And it's just so easy to get caught up in the entanglement of that where that's just like your focus every day, day in and day out. And it's so unfulfilling at the end of the day. It's like, it's never gonna be enough because I'm always gonna be reaching and when you can get to the point of exactly what you're talking about, it's just an amazing place to be because it's not about perfection, but it's about truly living authentically and just loving yourself for wherever you're at, whatever that chapter is. And it's a really mature way
Yeah.
to think about living and to associate all your actions with.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, I mean, I still love working out. I work out every day, as do you. But again, there's different purpose behind it. I want to take care of myself. I want to fill my cup up first thing in the morning so I can fill my son's cup up and be in a good mood for him. And a workout just for me is what that is. Maybe it's not for everyone. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's journaling. But for me, it's like going to the gym, getting my heart rate up, lifting weights, sweating a little bit, and going home and showering and then we start the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's simple, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what so many of us are missing today is that we have to have like 500 things on our to-do list and we have to check every single one off or we're a failure. When in reality, if we just keep it so simple as much as possible, then that's really where we feel accomplished and we feel validated in our worth because we don't have to achieve something to feel as though we have value. And that was the big reframe for me because I think we just naturally we gravitate towards if I didn't accomplish it, then my self-worth is
Yeah.
diminished. Then I'm not a good enough mom. I'm not a good enough wife. I'm not a good enough, individual to businesswoman, so there's so many different perspectives and aspects of the way that we view ourselves. But if you're coming from the standpoint as you were sharing, I think that just as with anything, like simplicity is key. So just like really getting dialed back and what are the things that are essential right now, prioritize and our self-worth, our self-being, preserving that, especially in the morning, keeping it simple, like and setting the tone for your day can be so powerful.
Yeah, and just asking yourself, anyone listening right now, like maybe they're like, oh, okay, well, I need to go do a workout. Well, no, just really reflect on what you really need. And maybe that isn't a workout. Maybe again, it's just
Yeah.
that habit of catching your negative thoughts and reframing them. Like just being the habit of things that don't take any other time other than what you're doing, right? Right. You're sitting at your desk working. You don't have to like schedule a workout. Just if you're trying to change any area of your life, it starts with like being aware of what you need to change first.
Exactly.
And then not thinking it has to, again, be something you achieve to get that, um, whatever you're seeking, like love, acceptance, whatever. It's like obviously it all starts with us, it's all within us. But yeah, just find a habit that doesn't take any time if you don't have any time.
Absolutely. And I feel like that brings us into the next question with in regard to balance. What do you feel helped you get through some of the heaviest seasons? I know you've been through a lot, grief and death, abuse. There's been so many life experiences. Yeah. So how would you say into
I
that?
can't believe I'm saying this, but as being a perfectionist and a performer, but it was really just giving myself permission to say I don't have it all figured out. Yeah, it's for so long. I thought that I just knew everything. I wanted to control everything. And my heaviest seasons looking back, are really have been silent seasons or waiting periods. Especially in grief, it's so life changing and rocks your world and you're like, how do I go about my day now? Yeah, it kind of becomes this like, you know, when you have lost someone, like how long it's gonna take for you to get over it in a sense or feel normal, and that just feels like silent or like you're waiting. And so those have been my heaviest seasons is when I've just been in a waiting season to like cry out to God, like, okay, like show me what I'm supposed to be doing. After 35 years and having so much experience and just looking back and like all the things I tried to control and steer myself just never worked out. And so I'm really big on like sitting in a moment and just being like, what does God put right in front of me right now? And just focus on that. Like right now, yeah, I don't have certain things that I have in the past as far as like a thriving brand and opportunity. But I have my son and I'm a mom and I can't say like, well, I'm doing this, but I should be doing this over here. So like, I'm getting good at, like, what is present right now in the life, in the moment, and I'm just gonna focus on that, and then, like, if there's something else I should be doing, it will come into my life. Yes. All the best things that have ever happened to me have come, like, I'm looking this way, and they come they come from over here. And so I can't try to, like, control everything, and, so yeah, like I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. I would have been like, oh, well, if it's heavy, then I'm just gonna like be busy and be busy for the sake of being busy, out being productive because I didn't know how to sit with myself and my feelings. But now I can really sit with my feelings, have like a bored day, have a day where nothing really goes on other than to take care of my son. But in the
Yes.
past, I would have been like, no, I have to fill my day and fill my schedule. So yeah, just really just giving permission to just know that it's a season and stay open to opportunity and just control what I can control, which is my attitude, my thoughts, my beliefs, my habits, and the rest. Like
Yeah.
literally the best things, I swear. The things that have just moved the needle in my life have always been from just honestly someone else reaching out to me or like an opportunity. I'm like, wow, that came out of nowhere. Well,
Yeah.
it came out of nowhere. I've really been working on it the whole time, but I wasn't controlling the details of it.
Yes. I love that you talked about space because I feel like that's an area that so many of us high performing women struggle with
Yeah.
because we don't want to allow that gap in time
Yeah.
for us to not fill it with something. We feel like we have to be productive, we have to be on 24/7. And I know that there's a lot of women listening to this right now that are probably thinking to themselves like, how do I create that space? Like, I mean, what would that even look like? And they could be feeling like they're at the end of themselves,
Mhm.
like, they're just like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know how I can create anything more right now because I just feel like I have to be on 24/7. So what would you say to that individual that's, like, just struggling so much and she's like, I want to do that, but what would you say that could even look like
Wanted
for
that
them?
space or like more.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I would actually say, like, take an audit of your life and where there's the most friction and see what you are trying to control, honestly. Because, I mean, I feel like when we just try to control, whether it be a person, whether it be a situation, it's only going to bring us more stress and more
Yes.
friction into our lives. So look at where you're trying to control. Like, what area of your life? Is it your kids? Is it your partner? Is it your business? And if you're just going through the hamster wheel over and over and over, and nothing seems to be changing, maybe it's just time to surrender that and let go. And I've had to do that multiple times, even with like my partners. I've tried to like be like, you should do this and let's do this and do it this way. And I know how to do it this way. And it just wasn't working out. And it created more resentment between us because I mean, I'm sitting here saying, you're not doing it the right way. And he's like, well, you're trying to control me. And so I just had to like put my hands up and say, just it's like the let them theory by Mel
Yes.
Robbins. Basically,
I love
here's my answer. Read the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins because I mean, it's funny. I just recently read it and luckily I have learned, I already knew all the things she's talking about. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I have my life a little bit figured out. And I'm like, oh, I do that, I do that, I do that. So, yeah, again, just the relinquishing control is like we think it's for our safety, but really it's just hindering us even more.
And it just really reaffirms, I feel like, what you already know. Like so many of us do know a lot of these things, but we just, as you prefaced before, we don't give ourselves permission. Yeah. We don't create those boundaries. We don't establish the essentials for our self care. And when we're living in a time that we're more busy than we've ever been as moms, as business owners, as women that are tackling, taking care of the kids and just managing every aspect of everything, we have to recognize that we are doing life different than we used to do it. So
Yeah.
we have to be able to adjust for that.
Mhm.
So from a mindset perspective, from a physical perspective, emotional, mental, yeah, every aspect does require a little bit of shifting.
Mhm.
And we, I think, need to really lean in to what is it that we really truly need the
Yes.
most.
Yeah.
Because every season is different.
Yeah.
When you didn't have kids versus having kids versus the evolution of where your kids are,
Yeah.
their ages,
Yeah.
makes such a huge difference too. I mean, where a toddler's baby versus, I'm gonna have a teenager this fall, which is so crazy. And so, all of those different things, I think, play a huge role. So I love that we're talking about creating space because I think you need to do it often.
Yeah.
Seasonally, you have to like just get back in there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take the time to
Yep.
adjust.
Yep. What can you let go of right now that you don't need to absolutely be doing?
So what's because you are kind of the habit queen, what is one habit that you would recommend to our audience? Or is there something that you like just absolutely love and you feel like is something that's you're pretty consistent with and it doesn't necessarily have to be daily, but yeah, you know you do it often.
That's a good question. I mean, my typical response would be like, "Oh, get to work at it." But if it's not that, then I think just self-reflecting is a big one. Just my kind of the framework that I help people around is like that first step that you need to get to is like the acceptance of where your life is, maybe acceptance of what's not working for you, what is working for you, your thought patterns. And again, taking that audit of your life and seeing where there is the most friction and then accepting that situation. And then the next piece is how I self-reflect is okay, accept this is happening. The next piece is acknowledgement of like what role do I have to play in this piece? Because again, no one is controlling you. Everything is your life, your thoughts, your actions. So what role am I playing in this suffering? I mean, it doesn't have to always be suffering, but in this stress that I'm creating, am I not relinquishing control? Am I being too hard on myself? Am I being too strict? So it's just acceptance, acknowledge what role you're playing in that friction in your life, and then building the awareness around that to change that situation, whether it be journaling, whether it be letting go, whether it be meditating, whether it be going on a walk, listening, reading a better book than like a fiction book. But if you yeah, some development about anything. So yeah, that's big the steps I take when I self-reflect, acceptance, acknowledgement, and awareness.
I think it's one of the most overlooked things that so many of us do because of the busyness, because of the nature of like how much we have going on. And I'm so grateful that you touched on that because that is a daily practice. I think that's something that we all need to do every single day, break up the day. And even if it's for 5, 10 minutes, whether it's journaling or just sitting with our thoughts, you know, this, our thoughts become who we are ultimately. They exude forth in our actions, and whatever we're buying into, it becomes our influence. And so, sitting and reflecting and going through all the things, whether it's a challenge or a negative experience, or even positive experiences, and just celebrating those wins, like taking the time to really recognize where we are, what's important to us, what are we going through, and just as I like to think about it, like doing that mini check-in every single day, checking in, how am I doing? Yeah, yeah, and I think that's to be essential.
Even then maybe like once a quarter or once a year. But then I think the habits that build around that self-reflection is what will be the daily.
Yes, yeah, yes.
And I remember a quote, I'm not even gonna quote, but just a saying. I think this is really important for people too, is like happiness. They say happiness is from when you are learning something new. So if you're always like challenging yourself in some way, it doesn't not have to be a super hard challenge or marathon or if it's yeah, repetition. But what better like thing to learn about than your own self? So just give definitely a challenge of I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure out why this pattern keeps happening in my life. I'm gonna figure out why I'm always stuck. Why am I always in this position? Why do my relationships never work out? Find that pattern that always repeats for your life and just start to learning it very curious. I will say that I'm very curious about myself, which is why I'm always like reflecting, like, what can I work on? And yeah, it's just start to learn about yourself, give yourself a challenge in any sort of way.
Yes. So
I feel like you're working towards something. Yeah. What better thing than to work toward than like improving your own life? Yeah.
Kayla, this is absolutely amazing today. I want to thank you so much for being my first yet on here. Yay, we're Dream Ignite filled. And I just would love to have you back on the show. I feel like we could talk about this for days. I'm like, man, I want to keep going with that. But we'll have to certainly circle back on a lot of this and continue the conversation. And I want to see all the things that you're going to be doing. And you have your own podcast. So I definitely want you to share with the audience about that. And then also where they can find you, where they can connect with you and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, my podcast is called Habits You Love. And really you can find me on all socials, either my personal name, which is Kayle Fite. So I have kaylefite.com. My socials are Kayle Fite or Habits You Love, TikTok, Instagram. I'm mainly on those. And yeah, that's it for right now. Yeah. Subscribe to the podcast, listen, leave a review.
All the things, right? So thank you for joining us at Dreaming Night Build today. We really appreciate you tuning in. Definitely give us a subscribe, give us some comments if you have any questions for Kayla. We'd love to hear your feedback. And until next time, always remember to build better habits and create the time and the space for yourself.